Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq before George Bush and Tony Blair sent hundreds of thousands of Western soldiers illegally to invade and occupy it. There is now thousands of them, and they're sweeping all before them. ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, was actually recently expelled by the Al-Qaeda Chief Ayman Al-Zawahari for being, and I quote, too sectarian, too extreme, unquote. I've seen no reason to disbelieve him.
In the last few days, many of Iraq's most important cities and historic regions like Nineveh have fallen to ISIS, with scarcely a shot being fired. In Mosul and Tikrit, 35,000 Iraqi army soldiers threw down their weapons and ran away in the face of 800 ISIS fighters.
Iraq's Prime Minister seems certain to fall, the Iraqi state in real danger of collapse. That would be the crowning achievement, no doubt, of the Bush and Blair war. Joining us now to discuss what's happening in the land where he was born is London-based Sabah Al-Mukhtar of the Arab Lawyers Network in Britain. Dr. Sabah, thank you for joining us. I know you don't accept my characterization of the forces that are sweeping all before them. We'll come to that, I promise you. But describe, if you would, the military situation now. Either these are the best 800 fighters in the world ever, or something big is really happening.
I don't think they are the best in the world. However, they are professional leaders of the previous Iraqi army. They are the generals of the army, leading forces, local forces. They are the people of Mosul, they are the people of the towns and cities that have fallen in their hands. They are not the ISIS, they are not the Al-Qaeda. It's amazing that 3 minutes after the entrance into Mosul, before anybody knew anything, immediately Washington said it was ISIS, it was Al-Qaeda, and it was the Daesh. This is the idea, that's how you manipulate the news. I think it is wrong, because this is literally a revolution of the people led by ex-military officers. And to show you the result of that one is if you take Fallujah. Fallujah, for a whole month, Maliki, with all his forces, including the Air Force, could not take back Fallujah, which is a small town, because of the military capability. This is on the one side. On the other side, Maliki does not have an army. He has mishmash people who came together because they want to live, because they are sectarian in their approaches. The people who have taken over now Mosul and they are moving downwards, they are now on the entrance, northern entrance of Samarra. So they've taken all the towns from Mosul down the Tigris all the way to Samarra. All these areas, it is not a fight between Maliki's army and Daesh or ISIS or Qaeda or any of these things. It may be a convenient way of saying it, because this is the Bush doctrine. You accuse your enemy of being the devil, the evil, and then your case is made. The situation in Iraq is really, this is a continuation of the uprising which took place in the West. Now the Western forces are moving toward Baghdad. Yesterday, Baghdad airport was bombed, so they are as close as that. From the north, they are moving down. Maliki now is pleading with the Americans to come and intervene. I don't think they will. I don't think Britain will intervene. I don't think the Iranians can intervene because of the various implications. The Kurds certainly, at the present moment, are not going to interfere. Najafi, both the Speaker of the Parliament and his brother, who was the governor of Mosul, pleaded for a whole day with Masoud Barzani to send his troops into this, and he's not moving.
Well, I'm not normally accused of being a proponent of the Bush doctrine, and I'm not. And if it's a revolution of the people, as you describe it, then it's a revolution of the Sunni Muslim people. There are no Shiites in the army that is advancing and taking these cities. But the majority of people in Iraq, at least in the Arab part, are Shiites. So what's this then, a recipe for civil war? Are the Shiites going to fight the Sunnis?
The Maliki is trying now to get the South to support him on the basis that they are Shiites. And you better come with me because the Sunnis are going to do that. They are not buying it in the South. Certainly all the people in the West and the North who are moving toward Baghdad and the other cities have absolutely no sectarian. And you know that It doesn't matter what anybody think of the previous regimes, from the monarchy time when the British left Iraq in the 20s until 2003. Sectarianism has never been institutionalized. It's never been practiced or used by any of the regimes, whether the monarchy, First Republic, Second Republic, or the Ba'ath.
No, I agree with that. But ISIS, and by the way, it's not me saying that they're capturing these cities, and neither is it Obama or Cameron that's saying it. It's ISIS that are saying it on their website. They're showing the videos. They say, this is our army.
Of course.
They're definitely sectarian, because in Syria, where they also lay territorial claim, they are on a sectarian basis murdering large numbers of people.
There is no doubt in my mind that ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the others are all terrorist organizations. It doesn't matter whether they are supported by Saudi Arabia or by Iran or America. It does not matter. Those are
They are, as it happens, in Syria, but not in Iraq.
So at the end of the day, those are terrorist organizations. They have a sectarian motive. How you present the thing, I've seen it in Cairo on 6th October bridge during the revolution of Sisi. You saw 3 cars with a black flag on La ilaha illallah on it, and the media was saying, look, we told you Qaeda is coming to Cairo. You can have one camera taking one picture at one time in one area, and you say, fine. And have you ever heard a terrorist organization who do not claim the credit? So, of course, you get all these mutilated pictures.
This army that ran away, indeed, you've informed me, many of them didn't even engage. They took off their uniforms, got into civilian clothes before their enemy even arrived. The American taxpayer spent scores of billions of dollars, so-called, training them. Was that all just a Potemkin village? Is there nothing behind it?
Certainly, a lot of the billions which has been, it was stolen by their own people, by the American soldiers. And they bought people with it. They gave it to thieves. You had the Sahwa, you had the neighborhood watch and all the rest of it when they bought the tribal leaders. They used to give them a lot of money, and those people, they just take the money and build buildings in Dubai and Amman and London and everywhere else. The Americans have participated. You look at the Federal Audit Office, the American Federal Office, and it shows you how much money was stolen by the Americans themselves. Even Bremer and his team, when they were there, have talked to some of the auditing firms who have done. So this money, although they say they've spent this money on Iraq, this money was not spent on Iraq. Western policies is always, we talk about the billions and millions we give to Africa and I don't know what, but in reality, all the money, it goes to the Whitehall and to the office and to the contractors, and what is left, the little pittance, gets to the African or the Arabs. So those people, when they spend the money on the training, they didn't do any of that.
So it's a paper tiger, it's paper thin. Presumably, therefore, the road is open for whoever these people that are on the march are to march all the way to Baghdad. Is that their intention?
Yes, absolutely. This is the intention. They would go to Baghdad, and they are hoping that some of the uprising in the south will come up, partly because the Iraqi people now, they are not even working on sectarian. They are really fed up of the killing. The Shiites in the south are suffering from Maliki just as much as the people who are Sunnis. But it's what you talk about. I could declare myself the Imam of the Muslims in London, and to hell with anybody who doesn't believe me. That doesn't make me the Imam of London. So you can have somebody saying, you know, we have Najafi saying he's talking on behalf of the Sunnis in Iraq. And none of the Sunnis recognize the guy. In Iraq, the division is this. You're either with the occupation, with all its facets, including the so-called political process, or you want your country back between the patriots. And both camps has Shiites, both camps have Sunnis.
In this revolution that you describe, what is the fate of Christians and other minorities in Iraq going to be like?
The first step that has been taken by the units which took Mosul, because Mosul is one of the centers of Christianity in Iraq. The first step they've taken is to protect all the Christian churches, protected all the minorities, all the areas where you have a very high concentration of Christians. They have put people to protect the area. Now, of course, in such a situation, you're likely to have all sorts of criminals and other thugs and terrorists. Everybody is going to be in. And everybody can produce a, you know, I'm sure anybody can have a camera and make me hold the flag. It's very easy. A black flag with 5 words in Arabic on it in white, and that makes me Qaeda. I could do that in London. I'll be arrested, though, but that's a different issue.
Well, the picture you paint is obviously different to that which is being portrayed in the media. And you may be right. You've been right many, many times about Iraq. But protecting Christians in Mosul would not square with the wholesale anti-Christian and other religious minority activities of ISIS in Syria. I think you concede that ISIS and Al-Qaeda types are undoubtedly involved in this mix. What's going to stop them hunting down heretics or kafirs in Iraq in the way that they've done in Syria?
Well, because the problem in Iraq is different from Syria. In Syria, you have a situation where the government, there is still a full-blast government which is using the power and the authority it has. In Iraq, you have a no-government situation. Yeah. So now, the one who are protecting the minorities, trying to give, at least to market themselves, they have to make the protection. And that's why they have explicitly gone for that. Now they are working, I understand that they are working very hard on trying to release the Turkish consul and his group, because they want to show themselves, that's those people who are, whatever you want to call them. You want to call them ISIS, call them ISIS. I don't mind the names. But I'm telling you, they are the military council of Mosul, and they are the military. There are 18 military councils in Iraq. They are the people of that area, led by generals of the previous army. They are not sectarian. They have no agenda in religion. They actually want to protect the people. They want to show themselves to be better than Maliki. And as you know, Iraq was a secular state all of its life until the Americans came to Iraq, turned it into a theocratic. We have now more turbaned men in parliament and more covered women in parliament than anywhere, than even in Iran. So this is, it doesn't matter what we can accuse them. The Americans have adopted this line. You know, everything that is gone bad, it's the Iraqis have done it. The Americans haven't done anything wrong. Madeleine Albright said she thought 250,000 dead babies is a price worth paying to get rid of Saddam Hussein, as if Saddam Hussein, to her, was something important. Now, he is a dictator, okay, fine, but he's an Iraqi. He has more right there than Bush and Albright, and including the rest of the Western powers in Europe, in the UK, and other countries.
Fascinating. Thanks very much indeed, Sabah Al-Mukhtar, for that. After the break, we'll be talking about a Trojan horse. Or is it a Trojan hoax? We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sputnik. It is no less than an outbreak of McCarthyism in Britain. Based on a forged document, a hoax called Trojan Horse has sparked an unprecedented wave, a witch hunt against an ethnic minority, Britain's 2 million Muslims. Sure, there are a few white Muslims in Britain, but mainly their faces say their name is Abdul or Fatima.
This racism doesn't come from the far right or paramilitary thugs, but from the state and its mass media Pavlovian dogs. Britain's Muslims today are watching with mounting fear and alarm as one by one high-achieving co-religionists are being dragged out, pilloried and sacked.
The Trojan Horse hoax deals with schools, mainly in Birmingham, but spreading first to Bradford, then East London, which are overwhelmingly successful schools, schools which have transformed themselves from sink schools to the top of the league, schools where girls are doing better than boys, where most of the prefects are girls and ought to be given a medal by the state.
Indeed they were, and just 11 months ago being described by the government inspectorate as outstanding. But we're invited now to believe that in just months a Taliban-type offensive has swept all before it.
So much so that all of the major participants in this drama, those being named and shamed in the newspapers and on television, are now afraid, intimidated, to come on television to discuss it. After all, it could cost you your job. So we're going to do it ourselves.
Indeed. I believe that you are personally involved in it. But before we get into that part, please explain us, what is this Trojan horse document all about and how did it all start?
It's a document that is widely accepted now as having been a forgery, a hoax, a kind of protocols of the elders of Zion type hoax, with no signature on it, found in a briefcase, in a locker, and sent to a very large number of people. This sparked the investigation, as they would call it, the witch hunt, as I would call it. It's now widely accepted that it's a hoax, that it's a forgery, but the investigations went on anyway.
Yeah.
And schools which just 11 months ago had been declared to be outstanding are now being denounced as a kind of hotbed of incipient Islamic extremism, though there's no evidence at all beyond the fact that on school trips, for example, girls and boys traveled on separate buses, that at school picnics, girls and boys sat at separate picnic tables. This is the kind of nonsense that has been elevated hysterically to a subject that is now dominating the British news agenda every single day for a week. So the Trojan horse was found to be empty. But in the classic witch hunting style, the witch finder generals have gone on looking. And governors are being sacked. Schools are having their funding withdrawn. Schools that were outstanding 11 months ago are now being bankrupted by the government and its official inspectorate, which is now openly acting under political direction for the first time ever in the history of this country.
This witch hunt after Muslims happens after, of course, the win of UKIP during the local and European elections and the defeat of the established parties. Is it convenient coincidence?
I believe it's a direct dog whistle response by the government to the rise of the UKIP electoral bubble. They are saying to the potential UKIP electorate, we are the party that's tougher on immigrants. We are the party that's tough on Muslims. Although there are a few white Muslims in Britain, the vast majority of them have brown and black faces. So when people are looking around themselves in the street for some kind of dangerous man or woman for that matter, they know what to look for. They even look at people who are not Muslims but are Sikhs and are frequently thought to be Muslims. So there's a very grave sense of unease amongst Muslims, like the ones I represent in Parliament, tens of thousands of them, that they're somehow being targeted, they're being attacked. And for what? Because they prefer their girls to sit at a separate picnic table. Let me tell you something.
This is a recipe for,
I sent my own daughter to a girls' school because I didn't want her distracted by talking to boys. This would now qualify me as an Al-Qaeda commander. And generations of high-achieving, middle-class parents, white parents, non-Muslim parents, have sent their girls to these girls' schools precisely because you're in school to learn. And the girls and boys in these schools were learning in an unprecedentedly successful way. One of them, for example, Parkside in Birmingham, was one of the highest achieving schools in the entire country. This from just a few years ago being a sink school that everybody had ignored and forgotten.
You mentioned Birmingham and you mentioned Bradford and also East London in your introduction. These are all three areas which you and the Respect Party represented. Is that a coincidence?
Well, a point made in the London Times this very morning. Now, the Times used to be the journal of record. It's kind of fallen on hard times now. It's the sort of fur coat of the Murdoch empire, part of the Fox News Sun newspaper empire. But in an editorial this very morning, a whole editorial dedicated to me, in which it explains that actually the three places where these problems are manifesting themselves have one thing in common. I've represented all of them in Parliament, or tried to. Now, the reality is these are three areas where there are large numbers of immigrants, large numbers of Muslims. That's the common denominator, not the fact that a lot of them have in the past voted for me. Michael Gove has announced that all schools henceforth will have to teach British values. Now, I've asked in Parliament, what are the values that are specifically British that are going to have to be taught by teachers? Is it the values that have destroyed Iraq? The values that are supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria? The values that supported the terrorist uprising in Kiev in the Ukraine? Is it the values of an empire on which the sun never set because God would never trust the British in the dark? What values are specifically British that are going to have to be taught? They say that one of them is tolerance. But of course, it's emerging out of a swamp of intolerance of people who dress differently, eat differently, and pray differently to the majority in this country. So it's a very, very serious development. And it's one which will lead, as all these kind of brouhahas do, to blood. Because before long, yes, mosques will be attacked, Muslims will be attacked, and the mindset of the attackers will be, these people are taking over our schools. These people are trying to Talibanize our cities. And it's all based on a hoax, on a forgery, which is a very, very serious turn of events.
But there's a big critical uprising against it too, right?
Well, I hope so. I'm waiting for it. The Muslim population has gone to ground. No leader of the Muslim community can be found to come out fighting on this. I'm doing my best in Parliament and with others. In Birmingham, one of my former colleagues, Salma Yaqub, has set up a hands-off Birmingham schools movement, and she's doing a terrific job on that. We're organising a series of public meetings in East London, in Birmingham, and of course in my own constituency in Bradford. We're trying to answer this. The problem in Britain is unachieving schools, underachieving schools. The fact that not enough money is being spent on the teachers and the equipment and the buildings to make our schools fit for the 21st century. And actually to eviscerate schools which are actually doing well shows the kind of priorities that the British government has. It's all over social media, of course. What's been rattling on ours on this?
Well, yes, we asked the people what turned out to be inside this Trojan horse, to which Ferdocha said, nothing but Tory intent to create fear, foster suspicion, and keep us divided. And Sharona answers, anti-UKIP repellent.
Ah, anti-UKIP repellent.
Yeah,
that's a very good and concise way of saying what I tried to say.
Just, if I may continue to comments on the Iraq developments, because we asked whether the fall of Mosul to Al-Qaeda affiliates make prosecution of Blair imperative. To which Roger the Dodger answers, the puppet masters of this orchestra are the Saudis, the CIA being the conductors, and ISIS are just the hired guns. And our own beloved William Hague answers, now that we negotiate with terrorists, I'm going to suggest we swap Blair for some oil.
Well, this is, of course, the great irony. The people who say they're most concerned about Islamism are the people who have fantastically inflated the problem of Islamist extremism. They're the people who invaded and destroyed Iraq. They are the people who invaded and destroyed Afghanistan. They are the people who backed the fanatics in Syria, who have destroyed Syria. And they have the nerve to accuse those of us who opposed them on all of these three issues of somehow being a font of Islamist extremism. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for.
Do please keep in touch with us on Twitter at @RT_Sputnik, and on Facebook you can like us on Sputnik on Russia Today. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.